Okay, I finished on the bandsaw. And remember, I left a little bit extra to my line. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clamp this to the table. And before I start sanding, I'm going to shape this a little bit more because I left quite a bit extra. What we have here are two types of files. We have a rough file to take the material off a little bit quicker. Then we have a file that will actually smooth it a little bit, and then we'll finish with some sandpaper. What you're going to want to do is take the rougher file, if you got quite a bit left, clamp your board down, such as I have done here. Now using both hands, using a stroke at about a 45-degree angle, we're going to start shaping our wood.
Now it's on to everybody's favorite step in the whole process, sanding. Not really, I know. But sanding is one of those necessary evils. It's a lot easier to sand while they're individual pieces at this point. But if you look at this, you're trying to sand in this corner in here, it's not going to have very good results. So let's sand all the pieces individually. Start out with a rough grit sandpaper, like an 80 or 100 would be the number in reference. We went our way up to 120, 150, and finally we finished it all up with a 220. That should make it nice and smooth. If you have to ask yourself, have I sanded enough? Then you probably haven't. Keep that in mind. Now if I can sand off Sharpie marker, you should be able to sand off pencil marks. We need to insert a step according to our directions, 13.5, 13.8, whatever you want to call it. You don't want to router any of your profiling until all your sanding is completed. So now that we've finished all of our sanding, we're going to go to the table router, and we're going to router our edge detail into all our pieces if we want to and where we want to. If you have a design cut into the back, as we have here, you're not going to be able to do that on the router table. We're able to do an outside curve, but not an inside curve. So that you're going to have to resort to the handheld router. And if you'll notice during my routing operations, I'm not limited to one bit. I've chose a cove bit for this operation. All right, when it comes to these brackets, they're too small to handle on the router table. So one option is to use a file. Start with a coarse grit file and then switch over to a fine grit and repeat the procedure. A little bit faster method is using our strip sandpaper and just relieving the sharp edge. All right, now that we got everything cut, sanded, drilled, we're ready to assemble. So do we grab the drill, grab the screws, and start going? Now let's do what's called a dry fit, which means basically position everything without glue and make sure we don't have to make any changes or modifications while it's still one piece. And what I'm looking for is to make sure all the screw holes are covered on the back side of the top piece and that our side pieces will intersect with the back. All right, now that the dry fit's completed, we're going to go ahead and do some assembly. We're going to assemble this in two sections. You definitely want to use glue along with the screws. So go ahead and apply a thin bead. Not too much, because you don't want it to squeeze out on both ends. One suggestion is to position this on the clamps. Excuse me. And this is where a partner will definitely come in. Back it out just a little bit. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm positioning it up against my side, and I'm making sure this end is flush. Use your finger, because that's actually a better sense of feel than your eyes are. Okay, he'll go ahead and tighten the clamp when he checks his end. Now the second clamp was there just for support. Because now I want to flip it. Position this one out of the way. And we're going to use either an impact driver or a cordless drill. I'm going to use my thumb on the back side. Flip this around so you can see. Thumb or finger, and I'm going to pull that so it's flush. Again, I'm using my sense of touch over my sense of sight. A little bit more guaranteed. Position it into the pilot hole and drive it in. And it should pull it tight. We got a little squeeze out at the bottom. We'll take care of that later. I'm going to go ahead and do that to the other side. Sometimes it's easier to flip it back around. Again, use that sense of touch to make sure everything's lined up or it'll rock once it's mounted on the wall. Okay. Now I can remove the clamp and repeat the procedure with the top. Again, the clamp's not necessary, but I've built several of these, and that's what I found is the best help to get this attached.